This week we're going to talk about the ColecoVision video game system as well as its expansion, the Atom computer system. The ColecoVision is a second generation home video game console that was developed by Coleco, and it was launched in North America in 1982. It was released a year later in Europe by CBS Electronics, and it was called the CBS ColecoVision. As far as records go, it sold more than 2 million units, but this was only between 1982 and 1983. They did not keep records for 1984. It was discontinued in 1985 because, as you all remember, there was the video game crash in 1983, and that hit Atari, Intellivision, and ColecoVision all hard. It also convinced them not to release a ColecoVision 2 game system. The CPU is a Zilog Z80. It came with 1 kilobyte of scratchpad RAM, 16 kilobytes of video RAM, and 8 kilobytes of ROM. The joysticks, as you can see, have a joystick control and then also a numeric pad. You could put overlays over the numeric pads that told you what to do in a game. The console itself offered a closer experience to more powerful arcade games compared to its main competitors, which were the Atari 2600 and Intellivision. It actually, when it was first released, it had an impressive catalog of 12 games, and this included the first home version of Nintendo's Donkey Kong, and that was the game that came with the game system, which is sometimes called a pack-in game. Between 1982 and 1984, almost 136 games were published on arcade games that found a larger audience on the console, such as Ladybug, Cosmic Adventure, and Venture. Coleco released a series of add-ons that we'll talk about in just a minute. The Coleco Atom is a home computer and expansion device for the ColecoVision by the video game manufacturer Coleco. The Coleco Atom is a home computer and expansion device for the ColecoVision by the American toy and video game manufacturer Coleco. The Atom was an attempt to follow on the success of the company's ColecoVision video game console. It was available as expansion module number 3 for the ColecoVision, and it converted it into a home computer and could function as a standalone unit as well. So there were two different Atoms that were released. There was one where you could plug the ColecoVision console into it. This particular unit is a standalone, and the ColecoVision component is here, and this is where you insert cartridges, and then the joysticks plug into the side, and it came with white colored joysticks with the numeric keypad, whereas the ColecoVision itself had black joysticks. It also came with a keyboard, which wasn't too bad to use, and then it used data packs for storage. And in this particular system, I have installed a second tape drive, and that just makes it easier to back up and copy programs. I was fortunate enough to obtain most of this from someone who was selling their entire ColecoVision collection, and they were nice enough to allow me to purchase it and keep everything in working order. The disk drive is kind of a rare unit, and it functions just like the ColecoVision. If you want to load a program, you hit the reset button on the top of the computer, and you can either load something from the tape drive, or from the disk drive. And the Super Game Pack Buck Rogers is what came with the system, which is shown here. But you have to understand, when it was first released, it had an extensive library because it was fully compatible with all the Coleco Vision games. So not only was it a home computer, but it was a video game library. And I have additional titles over here, and you can see that there was Atom Smart Basic. There was a lot of word processing software that was available for it. But you can just see I have a couple copies of Buck Rogers. Um, and then one title that's interesting is the Atom Link, and that was used in particular. The Atom Link is of interest because it worked with the Atom Link modem, and if you take the cover off of the computer, inside are three expansion ports. And please feel free in the comments to make any corrections with the information in this video. But I have the modem, it's already installed inside of the computer, and you would put the Atom Link software into your tape drive or data pack drive, and then you just would need to have it plugged in. And I actually have the original cord that came with it that is 10 feet long, believe it or not. So actually pretty cool. The Atom also came with a letter quality dot matrix printer. Its presentation and concept were positively received. One of the issues, though, was that they initially promised that they could do the whole bundle, including the printer, for $600. However, they had many setbacks in manufacturing and weren't able to meet that. The Atom was heavily criticized upon its launch for numerous defects in the early units. Users lodged complaints about the reliability of the disk and tape drives, and this part is actually very interesting. In particular, when the computer starts up, the power supply emits an EMP, an electromagnetic pulse, so strong that sometimes it can scramble or destroy data on storage medium left inside the drives or near the computer. So for instance, when you're powering it on, if you have the Super Game Pack in it, some people actually have had that erased, or if you had a cartridge next to the printer. So I try to have a fair distance from the printer because the power supply is in the printer. So that's why my system is spaced out. Other design flaws were noted, such as the digital data pack tapes being corrupted by the drives they were stored in, and also the peculiar decision to require users to plug the machine into a printer for power. So like I said, the power supply, that's the part that emits an EM pulse, is in the printer. I have a separate power supply for the Atom, so that I don't have to plug in the printer. About 60% of Atom owners return their units because of the defects. Besides the defects, the Atom also suffered from store availability issues, with Coleco having shipped only 95,000 units rather than the goal of 500,000 by the end of 1983. Some of the issues were in the manufacturing in particular, and with defects in the manufacturing process. This caused a delay in its release for Christmas, and that's part of the reason why they did not sell as many units. While many of the quality issues were resolved, the Atom's reputation was permanently damaged, and this affected sales even despite price reductions. Coleco reported a loss of over $258 million over the Atom itself, and this is why the Atom was discontinued in January 1985. And Coleco just never recovered from the losses incurred, and it finally declared itself bankrupt in 1988 after making several other poor business decisions. Just like the Coleco Vision, the Atom has a very strong homebrew presence, and there's still games that are made that are available on and released on the data packs. I have actually a lot of software below that are data packs, and some are actually releases, some are copies that I've made when I've been experimenting, like with Smart Basic. I made a backup copy, and others are just games, some of which have been written by the homebrew community. For the printer, there's an Atom accessory kit, and that had basically cleaning supplies, another ribbon, and a daisy wheel that to basically insert for different types of fonts. And I was fortunate enough to find one of those for the system. But overall, my opinion is that I think it's a great system. You know, despite the design flaws with the power supply and the EM pulse, I think it's a great system. The disk drive is very cool to use, and like I said before, if you just hit the reset button, then the data pack activates because I have a game in there, and I have Buck Rogers, and it rewinds to the beginning automatically no matter where you left off in the game, and then it loads. And the ColecoVision uses an RF output, so it could be hooked up to any television. But it's pretty cool how the drive works, and then it starts like a regular ColecoVision game, presenting Buck Rogers. But with the Super Game Pack, the graphics were even more enhanced than on a standard ColecoVision. The first expansion module was expansion module number 1, and this was the Atari 2600 expansion module. And it made the ColecoVision compatible with 2600 cartridges and controllers. It leveraged the fact basically that the 2600 used largely off-the-shelf components and was effectively a complete set of 2600 electronics. They were able to reverse engineer an equivalent of the 2600 sole custom chip, the TIA. It provided only the power and clock input to and the audio video output from the expansion module, which was otherwise self-contained and can be really thought of as the first 2600 clone console. Functionally, this gave ColecoVision the largest software library of any game console of its day, because you could play 2600 cartridges and you could play the ColecoVision cartridges. The expansion module did prompt legal action from Atari. They did settle out of court, with the Coleco becoming licensed under Atari's patents. The royalty-based license also applied to the ColecoVision's Gemini game system, which was a standalone clone of the 2600. And as you can see, there's joystick ports in the front. There is a reset, a game select, and then you have difficulty switches and color and black and white switches, just like you would on a 2600 unit. And then this plugs into the front of the ColecoVision, right there. And I use it, it does work. The expansion module number 2 was the driving wheel and also the gas pedal. It came with a cartridge called Turbo, and the gas pedal was basically just an on-off switch. And although they called it the driving controller and expansion module, it actually plugs into the controller port, not the expansion module interface that's on the front of the ColecoVision. The driving controller is compatible with other cartridges including Destructor, Pit Stop, Bump and Jump, and the Dukes of Hazzard. The expansion module number 3 was actually supposed to be um, adding more RAM as well as a tape drive and small tapes that they had named wafers in the drawings that they had come up with. However, they elected to do the Atom computer system instead. What I have up here is the Super Game module, and this basically boosts the power of the ColecoVision. It adds 4 sound channels and adds additional RAM. It plugs into the front of the ColecoVision, and when it's on, you will see a red on LED in the front. In addition, you can buy, it's called the Ultimate SD wafer drive for the ColecoVision. This works in conjunction with the Super Game module, and all you have to do is get a standard SD card, and it gives you instructions on how to specifically format it, and you can download a pack of ROMs. You can see on the TV to your left, it's very straightforward, and it's inclusive. You use the joystick to move up and down to select different games, and then you hit the fire button to pick a different game each time, and then you can pick different versions of games. It has homebrew games. It also has demos on here that have been written by people, so it's actually pretty impressive. And then you can exit out of it by hitting on top of it. A reset button is built in, and you can reset the system and then reload the SD card and all of the ROMs. The last thing that I'm going to show you is actually a storage case that works with the ColecoVision, the Atari, and the Intellivision, and you can store cartridges in it and then game systems as well. So it's actually pretty hard to find ones that have the glass intact on top, the clear plastic I should say, but they're pretty cool, and they do it serves a purpose. It keeps all of my loose games in place. But next we're going to transition over to the Atom computer system, and we will show you the tape drive, floppy drive, and a few other special accessories. And I'd like to thank everyone for watching the videos. Please tell me if you've had any experience with the ColecoVision. I'm always curious to hear about people's memories of when they got a ColecoVision, or if they had an Atom, or if they played at a friend's house. And if you like the videos, please give it a like and subscribe. I'm trying to release a video a week. Sometimes it's a week and a half, but I have over 30 different game systems and lots of accessories, so we have a lot of content to go through. I also buy new systems and I restore them and make repairs on them. So if there's a game system that someone wants to see in particular in the future, please put it in the comments, and I appreciate even any criticisms or feedback that people like to give, because I like talking about the different game systems I own, and I enjoy learning about them. And the best way to do that is by talking to other people. Now, there is a users group on Facebook, and that's a really, if you're just getting into vintage game systems, it's a really good system to use.